The turquoise waters of Scarborough Shoal shimmered under the relentless tropical sun, their beauty masking the tension that simmered just beneath the surface. But today, something was different. An uneasy stillness hung in the air, as if the sea itself was holding its breath. Filipino fishing boats, long harassed and shadowed by Chinese Coast Guard cutters, found themselves facing a new and unexpected reality. A U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS John Finn, appeared on the horizon, its imposing silhouette cutting through the waves as it placed itself squarely between the Chinese vessels and the Filipino fishermen. The stars and stripes flew not just on the warship, but now over Manila, Cebu, and Davao, signaling a new era of American presence in the Philippines. The message was unmistakable. An attack on these fishermen would now be considered an attack on the United States itself, a line drawn in the sand for all to see. The Chinese crew watched in disbelief, their radio crackling with urgent, frantic reports back to Hainan as they tried to process this sudden escalation. Years of unchecked intimidation and silent suffering had ended in a single, silent maneuver, one that changed the rules overnight. The Filipino fishermen, once fearful and wary, now felt a new sense of protection and power, emboldened by the steel shield of the U.S. Navy. The West Philippine Sea was no longer just a disputed zone. It had become the front line of a direct and dangerous U.S.-China confrontation. The reefs and fishing grounds, once the domain of local fishermen, were, in Washington's eyes, now American waters to be defended at all costs. The U.S. constitutional obligation to defend its own territory was now in full effect, with sailors and Marines standing ready for whatever might come next. The world watched, breath held, as the balance of power shifted in a single, tense moment, with newsrooms from London to Tokyo glued to the unfolding drama. The standoff was no longer just about sovereignty and survival for a small nation. It was about the future of the entire region. It was about superpowers, redrawing the lines of Asia, and deciding who would shape the destiny of the South China Sea. The Chinese, long accustomed to Manila's diplomatic protests, now faced the full might of the U.S. Navy in what they considered their own backyard. The Filipino fishermen, shielded by American steel and resolve, realized the game had changed forever, and that they were no longer alone. The fear that once defined their lives was replaced by a sense of belonging to something far larger, a new alliance, a new hope. The West Philippine Sea had become the newest American frontier, a place where history was being rewritten in real time. The vague promises of alliance had been replaced by the certainty of statehood, and the Filipino people now stood at the threshold of a new identity. The world's eyes were fixed on the shoal, waiting to see which giant would blink first, as the fate of the region hung in the balance. The U.S. destroyer didn't fire a shot. It didn't need to. Its presence alone was a statement of intent, a warning, and a promise. Its presence alone redrew the map, shifting boundaries and expectations with every passing hour. The South China Sea was now a test of wills between two superpowers, each determined not to back down. The stakes had never been higher, and the world could only watch and wait as history unfolded before their eyes. The old U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty was always ambiguous. Its language left much open to interpretation, and both nations often wondered about its true limits. Would America really risk war for a distant ally, thousands of miles from its shores, if push came to shove? China exploited this gray zone, advancing its claims without fear of a decisive U.S. response, testing the boundaries of American commitment. But with Philippine statehood, ambiguity vanished overnight, replaced by legal clarity and a new sense of unity. Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao were now as American as Texas, California, or New York, no longer just allies, but part of the nation itself. The U.S. Constitution guaranteed their defense. Chinese incursions became, by law, invasions of U.S. territory, demanding an immediate and forceful response. The Pentagon and White House faced a new reality. Defending the Philippines was no longer a choice, but a constitutional duty, enshrined in law. For Filipinos, the sense of vulnerability faded, replaced by the certainty of American protection and the promise of shared citizenship. The daily anxiety of Chinese harassment was now met with the knowledge that the world's most powerful military was their own, standing ready to defend them. The constitutional shield was no longer a promise, it was a fact, woven into the very fabric of American law and identity. Philippine statehood triggered a political earthquake in America. Over 115 million new citizens reshaped the electoral map, making Filipino concerns central to U.S. politics. Filipinos gained voting representatives in Congress, federal funding, and a direct say in foreign policy. The Filipino-American diaspora became a powerful domestic force, demanding a hard line on China. Defense of the West Philippine Sea was now a matter of national honor and political survival. Yet federal laws and Supreme Court rulings now govern daily life, trading local control for stability and resources. Filipinos gained a powerful voice, but also surrendered the absolute sovereignty of their own republic. The stakes of integration were higher than ever. China's response to Philippine statehood was immediate and furious. Beijing condemned the move as colonialism, launching a propaganda blitz and declaring the process illegitimate. The PLA Navy surged warships and held massive live-fire drills, transforming the South China Sea into a militarized flashpoint. Chinese jets buzzed U.S. patrols, while economic retaliation followed, bans on imports, vanished tourism, and sanctions on U.S. companies. The goal: inflict pain, fracture the new union, and show that statehood would have severe consequences. For China, the U.S. absorption of the Philippines was an existential threat, a red line crossed. The 9-dash line was now a matter of national identity. The dragon was not just roaring, it was preparing for a fight. Statehood transformed the Philippines into America's new western frontier. Old bases like Clark and Subic Bay became massive U.S. military installations, hosting carrier groups, bombers, and missile defenses. The islands became the central hub of U.S. power in the Indo-Pacific, projecting force across Southeast Asia. Filipino soldiers joined the U.S. Armed Forces, defending not just their home, but American interests worldwide. Local economies boomed around bases, but social friction and dependency grew. Most critically, the Philippines became a primary target in any U.S.-China conflict. The American shield offered protection, but also painted a bullseye on the archipelago. Cities like Manila and Cebu were now on the front line. Filipinos gained security, but inherited America's enemies. The fortress was both shield and magnet for attack. Philippine statehood rewrote the legal rules of the South China Sea. The 2016 Hague ruling, once ignored by China, was now absorbed into U.S. law. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard could enforce these boundaries as American territory. For Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, this set a new precedent. America would defend maritime law with force. The dispute was no longer regional. It was now about Chinese aggression against the United States. Ironically, the U.S. became the chief enforcer of UNCLOS, a treaty it never ratified. China called out the hypocrisy, but the law of the sea was now written by U.S. actions, not international courts. The West Philippine Sea had become the world's most contested legal battleground. The South China Sea is the world's commercial artery, now a superpower flashpoint. Military standoffs and threats of disruption sent insurance costs soaring and forced companies to seek new routes. Even minor Chinese interference could ripple through global supply chains, causing delays and shortages. The risk of economic warfare accelerated the decoupling of U.S. and Chinese economies. Corporations fled the region, seeking safer, if costlier, supply chains in India, Mexico, or the U.S. itself. The world split into rival economic blocs, ending the era of seamless globalization. The price of defending new American states was paid by consumers and businesses worldwide. The global economy was now hostage to the standoff in the West Philippine Sea. Imagine if the Philippines had become a U.S. state in 1946, not 2025. Back then, China was weak and the South China Sea was uncontested. Statehood would have meant peaceful integration, economic recovery, and American patrols as routine. The islands would have rebuilt with federal aid, their status solidified before China's rise. Fast forward to today, statehood is a geopolitical detonation, drawing a hard border through China's sphere of influence. The benefits of U.S. citizenship now come with the risk of superpower conflict. The decision is no longer about prosperity versus pride, it's about security versus the specter of war. In 1946, statehood was about recovery. In 2025, it's about confrontation. Timing changed everything. The Philippines now stands at the crossroads of prosperity and peril. For Filipinos, statehood promises not just economic transformation, but a fundamental shift in daily life. federal funds flowing into communities, the prospect of higher wages, and the right to live, work, and travel freely anywhere in the United States, the peso would be replaced by the dollar, opening doors to Social Security, Medicare, and other federal benefits, while the rule of law would be enforced by powerful federal agencies, changing the way justice and order are maintained. For many, it's the ultimate dream realized. America, with all its opportunities and promises, comes to them, transforming hopes into reality. But the cost is profound, the potential loss of a unique national identity, one that was forged through generations of struggle, sacrifice, and hard-won independence. Would Filipino culture, with its rich traditions and vibrant heritage, survive intact, or would it slowly be diluted and absorbed into the vast American melting pot? The question of statehood is about more than geopolitics or economics. It's about the very soul and spirit of a nation, and what it means to be Filipino in a changing world. Is this the beginning of a new dawn filled with prosperity, safety, and hope, or the quiet sunset of Filipino independence and self-determination? As U.S. warships now guard these new American shores, the answer remains uncertain, suspended between promise and loss. The Philippines may have gained a powerful shield and new opportunities, but the question lingers: at what cost to its heart and history? The debate may be over for now, but the question will echo through the lives and dreams of generations yet to come.